applications. We want to implement an information system in some specific client, just like company, organization, etc. We have to follow some steps. Yeah, we have to follow some step. Those steps is written formally in SDLC, a guideline. SDLC is like a guideline, a software development lifecycle. First step is like a user requirement activity. So what you do there is, as a client, as a developer, you will discuss with your client. You will ask them everything regarding to the current activity, regarding to the document that they use, and then what the pain point and what their hope from these new applications. And finally, we will get the requirements, what they really need from these new applications. First step. After you do the discussions, then you will collect, you will gather all the informations that is given by your client into a document. Then a new document is created. It called SRS document, software requirement specifications. So this is only one example of many documents involved in creating an applications. So in this case, static testing is the effort that is done by anyone involved to check that document, to check those documents. Any document needed in creating an information system should be checked together. Okay, you will check about the requirements, you will check about technical information, something related to coding, related to database, related to UI, UX, related to flow chart, flow process, etc. Any documents involved in project management need to be checked. And after it done in checking the document, then every stakeholder should approve on the document. So this is a static testing. Means that we don't touch the application at all. Yeah. We just need to see the documents. We just need to see the documents. We don't need to check the application. Why? Because it done earlier before developing the applications. Yeah, it also called dry run, and sometimes require programmers to manually read their own code to find any errors. Yeah, from the document, for example, like SQL, structured query language, the algorithm, store procedures, design of the database, the relationship, primary key, foreign key, etc. Yeah, for the expert, it will be easier for them to recognize which one is not suitable, which one is not fulfill, something like that. So the expert in programming, expert in database, they can easily check from the document. That's static testing. Easy, right? Easy to understand. The main objective of this testing is to improve the quality of software products by finding errors in early stages of development cycle. Early stages, before the programmer start their coding, before the DBA start to design the database, we can check, we can get, yeah, the errors, something missing, something not proper, etc. Most static testing technique can be used to test any form of document, including source code, design document and models, functional specifications, and requirement specifications that I mentioned before. Yeah, it will involve many documents. Each of step in SDLC will produce a document. It calls deliverable. Deliverable will be approved in every step. Yeah, for example, in user requirements, it will produce some documents. One of them is software requirement specifications, and any other document just like MOM, etc. And then once it's done, yeah, you have to check anything regarding to this document, and then all the stakeholder will approve. And when it approve, the team can continue to the next step. But when it's not approved yet, we cannot go to the next step. This method called a waterfall method, yeah, just like a waterfall. The water fall into the ground, yeah, it cannot be back to the up, something like that. Waterfall, just like in project management. Yeah, if we use a waterfall method, then we should be able to lock the document by sign by giving approval on it. Yeah. Before giving the approval, before we lock the document, we have to make sure, really sure about the content inside the document. So this activity called static testing. Easy, huh? Who the participant involved in static testing? It can be a moderator, author, scribe, reviewer, and manager. C. The moderator. The moderator, also known as a review leader, who lead the review activity, perform entry check, follow up on the reward because the document need to be revised. Yeah, some revision on the document need to be revised, and the revisions need to be checked. Schedules the meeting. Yeah, because in project management, meeting is really important. Sometimes we need to schedule meetings once in a week, twice in a week, once in a month, depend on, yeah. And then coaches other team lead the possible discussion and stores the data that is collected. Sometimes we need to make meeting in a cross functional and cross divisions, like purchasing want to discuss the something that is related to productions. Then the moderator will invite the participants, and then will conduct the meeting in some specific area, some specific time, something like that. The other is the key will illuminate the unclear areas. Yeah, make sure. Yeah, remove the gray area. Yeah, make it clear and understand the defects found. And then the basic goal should be to learn as much as possible with regard to improving the quality of the document. Don't let the document consist of any undefined, unclear status, unclear specifications or definitions. Yeah, sometimes we need to add additional note, yeah, or additional definition, additional explanation, etc., to make the documents clear. Yeah, why? Because this document finally, when the application is published, this document is like a holy book actually. Yeah, this document can be like a holy book. At first time, yeah, at the first time the application is running, as I know from my experience, so many parties, so many functional, so many vision will questioning, will argue, will discuss, will debate, or will fight each other. Sometimes we experience something like that. Then, when we in that condition, what we need to do? Let's go back to our holy book. Yeah, let's go back to our documentation. See in the documentation. For example, from the applications, we argue about some functionalities or some features. I need 5 features. Why in this application only provide with six, with four or three? Let's go back to the documentation. See on the documentation, yeah, and any other things. So we need to look back at the documentation. That why the documentation is really need to be clear. Yeah. Sometimes we need to add additional note, additional explanations, etc. Next is scribe. Scribe is a separate person to do the logging of the defects found during the review. It's like a notulen writer. Yeah. And then after the meeting, he will produce what it called MOM document. Well, do you know what MOM stand for?
Mom.
Mom and dad. Yeah. MOM stand for? minute of meeting. Yeah, minute of meeting. So anything that is discussed on the meeting, anything that is decided, agreed, yeah, we put it on the MOM document and it should be approved by all the attendants. Reviewers, also known as checkers or inspectors, check any material for defects, mostly prior to the meeting. The manager can also be involved in the review depending on his or her background. Before we start the meeting, we need to check the document first because we can use this as the uh, material that we want to discuss on the meeting. For example, like today is Friday, and then on Monday we will have a meeting. So today we should check the document, and we can put our note, our comment on the document. Yeah, some note that we will ask in the meeting. So here reviewers will take actions. Sometimes it will involve the managers. Um, Mostly it's related to technical documentations. Managers will decide on the execution of reviews, previous activities, and allocates time in project schedules and determines where the review process objectives have been met. If not met yet, then maybe we need to reschedule a new meeting. Yeah, schedule a new meeting. Okay, any questions before we continue? Okay, let's see the static testing techniques. It can be informal review, technical reviews, walkthrough, inspection process, and static code review. In informal review, it doesn't follow any process to find errors in the document. You just review the document and give informal comments on it. Maybe you print the documents and then you use your pen and put your mark there, put your comment there, mark it, make some additional or questions or anything. Fine. It applied many times during the early stages of the life cycle of the documents. It can be done repeatedly to make the highest quality of the document. Yeah, to make the documents more uh, perfect. Yeah, something like that, close to perfect. A two-person team can conduct an informal review, and in later stages, more people are involved. The more people involved, the more the better documents that we can get. The goal is to keep the order and to improve the quality of the document. The most important thing to keep in mind about the informal reviews is that it's not documented, since it's an informal, yeah, just like an additional note. Informal reviews, it follow a formal process. It is a well structured and regulated. A formal review process consists of six main steps. Start with planning, kick off preparation, review the meeting, rework, yeah, rework for some revisions that is met during the meeting. And when we have some revision that need to be revised, then a related team we'll do some revision and it should be controlled. We should check about the revisions that is done in follow-up activity. In technical review, a team consisting of your peers, your friends, review the technical specifications of the software product and checks whether it is suitable for the project. It will try to find any discrepancies in the specifications and standards followed. This review concentrates mainly on the technical document related to the software, such as test strategy, test plan, and requirement specification document. Something technical, yeah. So we will involve the technical expert, expert in programming, expert in coding, expert in database, yeah, expert in query, etc. We will involve that expert to check the document. All through. Okay, gamers. Yeah, gamers. So many gamers here. I know. What is walkthrough in gamers? In game, in playing game. I don't play game.
Instructions.
Instructions of what?
Instructions of how to play through the game.
Okay, good. So just like in static testing, in project management, in implementation of the new application walkthrough, it's also like the same. Yeah, the author of the work product explain the product to his team, explain about this product, how how to run the product, how to use some features, etc. Participant can ask questions only if some of the participant not understand or anything. Meeting is led by the author, and the scribe makes note of review comments. Since in this activity, the application is not finished yet, so it needs to explain about the expression, the application that going to be deployed, going to be developed. Inspection, the main purpose is to find defects, and meeting is led by trained moderator. This review is a formal type of review where it follows strict process to find the defects. Reviewers they record the defect and inform the participants to rectify those errors. So I had experience on this activity on 2017 when I involved in a project. We invite a consultant, a local consultant, who developed the application from Microsoft. And in this case, we, as a client, we I can say we are not 100% trust on that client. Sorry, on that consultant. Not 100% trust about how they work, about how they performance. Then in this case, we ask another, we can say train moderator here. So we ask from Microsoft itself, and Microsoft send us his expert in technical from India, as I know, yeah. And then we met together in a meeting, in the discussions, we as a client and our local consultant, and also technical expert from Microsoft. In this case, the technical expert from Microsoft open all the code that is written by the consultant, and he checks anything and he put his comment on it. This code is not optimum. This class is not optimum. Anything. There's so many lines. In every lines of code, he checks. It's called inspections. And after that, the consultant should follow recommendation from the technical expert. That's why we did the project to make the maximum quality of our product, something like that. Static code review. This is a systematic review of the software source code without executing the code, just like the previous activity that I explained. It checks the syntax of the code, coding standards, code optimization, etc. This also termed as white box testing, but in this case, we don't execute the applications. This review can be done at any point during development. What are the advantages of doing static testing? Since static testing can start earlier in the life cycle, so early feedback on quality issues can be established. We can prevent, yeah, we can prevent and avoid defect or bugs or errors. As the defects are getting detected at an early stage, so the reward cost most often relatively low. Yeah, because we just need to revise the document. Yeah, we just need to revise the document. The application, no, because it's not exist yet. Development productivity is likely to increase because of the less reward effort. The disadvantages, time consuming as conducted manually. Yeah, we need to check, and check again and again at the document until we find no errors. And also, it doesn't find vulnerabilities introduced in runtime environment. Why? Because we don't execute the application. We just see it from the document side. So we don't know about the vulnerabilities of our applications or product. Limited trainee personnel to truly conduct static code analysis because only the expert in programming uh, who can do this activity. So this is a picture about the comparison between static and dynamic testing. As I mentioned before, in software development lifecycle, it involves some steps like user requirements, system requirements, global design, detailed design, and implementation of the code. Each of these steps will produce several documents, and all of those documents need to be checked before we continue to the next step. Yeah, any document needed in user requirements should be checked, should be approved by any stakeholders. Once it approved, then we can go to system requirement step. When all the documents involved in system requirements not approved yet, we cannot go to global design step. Yeah, it's like a waterfall. Okay, one step is finished, we log, no changes, then we can go to the next step. In this case, in this method, we need a perfections, something perfect, close to perfect. And it's suitable to be applied in a big project, a billion rupiah project. In a big project, it can be applied. Some other method that you maybe ever learn is RAD, yeah, rapid application deployment. For RAD, it's suitable for a small or medium project, but in a big project, yeah, you can apply this method. And in dynamic testing, just like white box testing that we learned before, it consists of unit testing, integration testing, system testing, and user acceptance testing. All of those testing will need testing scenario that we have learned before. But in static testing, you don't need to create a testing scenario. No testing scenario needed in static testing. But in dynamic testing, it will involve it will involve a testing scenario. That's a difference. That's uh, the most different, yeah. On the table, you can see the comparison in static testing is done without executing the program, but in dynamic, it's done by executing the program. The testing does verification process. Verification means we need to make sure the step. One step, okay, and then we can continue to the next step. That is verification. But in dynamic testing, we do validation process. Validation process make sure that all the entire step. That's the difference between verifications and validation. Verification on focus on the step, validation focus on the entire step. Static about prevention of defects. Yeah, we can recognize the defects earlier, but dynamic testing about finding and fixing the defects. Gives assessment of code and documentation, and in dynamic it will give bug or bottlenecks in the software system in some specific lines of code, etc. It will involve checklists and process to be followed, how many check that need to be complete. But in dynamic it will involve test cases, yeah, test case that you usually do before. It performed before compilation, and in dynamic after compilations, after the developer done creating the applications. And static testing, the application is not exist yet. Static testing will cover the structural and statement coverage testing. Dynamic is executable file of the code. Cost of finding defects and fixing is less because if we find the defect, if we find the error, we just need to revise the document that is in static testing. But in dynamic testing, if we find the error or bug, we need to check again the code. Sometimes we need to modify the code. And of course, the cost will be higher. Return on investment will be high as this process is involved at early stage. But in dynamic, ROI, yeah, return on investment will be low as this process is involved after the development phase. More reviews, comments are highly recommended for good quality of the document in static and dynamic. More defects are highly recommended for good quality. The more we get the errors, the more we get the defect, it will improve the quality of our product. Of course, we fix it, yeah. Not only found, but after we find it, that we revise, we fix it. Require lots of meeting, comparatively require lesser